You know where your money is. Not exactly, not to the cent, but roughly. There's the checking account. There's the savings account you barely touch. Maybe there's a card with a balance you're not proud of. And that's the picture. A few boxes, all of them accounted for, all of them yours. Nothing is missing. You'd know if something were missing. A whole paycheck, a deposit you put down years ago, an insurance payout, that doesn't just vanish. It does. Right now, in a government building, in the state you live in, or a state you moved away from 15 years ago, there is a meaningful chance somebody is holding money with your name on it. Not a scam, not a rumor. A real balance, legally yours, that you have never once thought about. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how your money got there, what the state has been doing with it while it waits, and why, even though they will hand it back, nobody is in any particular hurry to find you. So let's start with the money you're certain you never lost. Do the arithmetic in your head. Every dollar you have ever earned went to one of two places. You spent it or it's sitting somewhere you know about. That's the whole list. Spent or saved. There is no third column. And that feels airtight because money is loud when it leaves. You feel a rent payment. You notice a car repair. The idea that a real amount of money could exit your life silently, permanently, without you registering a thing that doesn't fit the way it feels to be paid. But now count something else. Count how many financial relationships you have quietly ended. The job you left in 2014. The apartment with the utility deposit. The bank branch that got swallowed by a bigger bank. The insurance policy somebody took out with your name on it. Every one of those was a thread running from some institution to you. And when you moved, or changed your name, or let an email address die, you cut the thread. The money doesn't get cut. The money stays exactly where it is. It just loses the ability to find you. Here is the number. Roughly 1 in 7 Americans has unclaimed property sitting with a state right now. Not 1 in 7 households. 1 in 7 people. And that isn't a headlines estimate, it's NOPA's own figure. NOPA is the Association of the Unclaimed Property Programs of all 50 states, plus DC and Puerto Rico. That's their number, about their own vaults. Add it up nationally, and the states are sitting on somewhere around $70 billion belonging to people who aren't asking for it. And here's how your envelope got onto that shelf, which is the part that makes it nobody's fault, which is exactly why it's so hard to see. Some institution holds money that belongs to you. An old employer, a bank, an insurer. It sits untouched, and a clock starts. Every state sets a dormancy period in law, usually somewhere between 1 and 5 years, and often just one single year for an uncashed paycheck. When that clock runs out, the money is legally abandoned. Before they hand it over, the company has to try to reach you, so they send a letter to the last address they have on file, which is, of course, the address you left. And when nobody answers, the money goes to the state. It escheats. That's the actual legal word for it, and it's a very old one. Nobody stole anything. Every single step was legal, and most of them were required by law. Your money was processed out of your life by a machine working exactly as designed. Fine, you think, annoying, but fine. The state is holding it. It's safe. It's in an account somewhere with my name on it, waiting for me. It is not in an account with your name on it. Take Delaware. Because such an enormous share of American companies are incorporated in Delaware, Delaware collects a wildly outsized cut of the entire country's abandoned money. And unclaimed property is now the 3rd largest revenue source in the state budget. Not the 3rd largest fee. The 3rd largest source of money the state of Delaware runs on, behind personal income tax and corporate franchise tax, and ahead of nearly everything else. $424 million. They are not storing that. They are spending it. And Delaware isn't unusual. It's just the biggest. In Virginia, unclaimed property flows into the Literary Fund, which helps cover teacher retirement and school construction. $240 million went in during 2023 alone. In Connecticut, the Treasurer's Office collected more than $2.3 billion over 2 decades and returned less than 37% of it to the people it belonged to, while roughly $219 million went into the fund that publicly finances political campaigns. Then there's the detail that's almost funny. In California, if a company is late handing your unclaimed money to the state charges that company 12% interest. If the state is slow handing it to you, you get nothing. California removed interest payments to owners back in 2003, 12% for being slow with the state's money, 0 for the state being slow with yours. And in 2025, Ohio's legislature voted to move at least $1.7 billion of unclaimed funds into a brand new fund for sports facilities, $600 million of it earmarked for a domed stadium for the Cleveland Browns. Former state officials sued, arguing the Ohio Constitution doesn't permit it. A judge halted the transfer days before it was due to happen, and that fight is still in court. It could run for years. But sit with what the vote by itself tells you. When a state legislature goes looking for a spare $1 billion, the pile it does not technically own is sitting right there, and it is very, very quiet. Okay, then you'll just go and find yours. And you can. Genuinely, that part works, and we'll get to the door in a minute. But first, you should know what happens to the money that never makes it onto the list at all. Michigan holds 17.6 million individual unclaimed properties worth under $50 each. Together, that's about $189 million. None of them appear on the state's public search site, not buried behind a login, simply not listed. The state's explanation is that listing millions of tiny properties isn't practical from a system storage and cost perspective. A national unclaimed property watchdog put it a little differently. His words, "There's only one logical explanation for not showing those properties, and that is, the state doesn't want to return them." Connecticut did the same thing. More than $40 million in property valued under $50, kept off the public search until reporters went looking and the treasurer opened the database up, and $50 isn't life-changing. That is exactly why it works. Nobody sues a state over $50. But 17 million people times $50 is a very real number, and it sits in the general fund quietly, indefinitely, because somewhere the machine decided you weren't worth a row in a database. Now the other end of the scale entirely. In 2016, a man named Joseph Stankak died in a house on the southwest side of Chicago. He was 87. The few people who knew of him described a recluse, a hermit. He left no will and no obvious family. He also left $11 million. It took 6 years to find a single person to give it to. When an attorney finally traced the family tree out far enough, it came to 119 heirs, and most of them were living in Poland and Slovakia. People who had never met him. People who had no idea the man had existed, let alone that he had $11 million with their names somewhere behind it. In 2022, the Illinois treasurer handed it over. It is still the largest single return of unclaimed property in American history. And now the number that puts you right back in your place. Across the whole country, the median claim paid out through the state's shared search site is $100. The average is $2,080, dragged up there by the Stankaks. The median is $100. So here's the honest shape of it. In fiscal year 2024, the states returned $4.49 billion to actual people. That really happened. And the pile still grew. Which brings us finally to the door. Every single state runs one of these programs, and together they run a shared search site, missingmoney.com, managed by NAPA, which is to say, managed by the state programs themselves. You type in a name. That's the entire interaction. And the one mechanical fact that matters most about it. It is free. Always. There is never a cost associated with retrieving your unclaimed property, that is NAPA's own wording, about NAPA's own site. Which matters more than it sounds, because there is an entire industry of asset recovery services that exists to charge you a percentage of money you could have had for nothing. That's the whole front door. It isn't hidden. It isn't hard. It has been sitting there the entire time. But here's the part I can't stop turning over. The states spend this money. Delaware runs on it. Ohio tried to build a stadium with it. And none of that, not $1 of it, extinguishes your claim. Virginia's statute says it out loud. Reported property is held in perpetuity until reunited with a rightful owner. In perpetuity? There is no deadline. There is no expiry date. The state can spend every last dollar. And on the day you walk in and prove who you are, they owe it to you anyway. Which means all of it. The teacher pensions, the campaign ads, the stadium in Brook Park is on the books, still a debt. 50 state governments carrying an obligation that never ages, owed to millions of people who have no idea they're owed anything at all. So, you know where your money is. You know about the checking account, and the savings, and the card you're not proud of. And now you know about the other drawer, the one you never opened, in a building you have never been to, in a state you might not even live in anymore, where an envelope with your name on it has been sitting patiently at the back of a very long shelf. While somebody else spent what was inside, you never lost that money. You just never looked in the one drawer you didn't know you had.